TingTingin here. Stable Diffusion 2.0. It's 50% better than Stable Diffusion 1.5. If you have Stable Diffusion 1.5, delete it right now. Stable Diffusion 2.0 is way... Okay, it's not. Okay, here's the thing. Stable Diffusion 2.0 just released, and you would think that it's better in every way than Stable Diffusion 1.5, but you'd be wrong. Actually, it is better in some ways, but it's worse in some other ways, and in some ways, it's not really that good. Like, what's going on? How did it not just go 50% better, even though it went up 50% the amount of points? You know? That's what should have happened. What's going on? Well, that's the video that you came in to watch, to click on. In this video, I'm going to be comparing Stable Diffusion 1.5 to Stable Diffusion 2.0 to try to figure out and get to the bottom of what happened. So yeah, watch the video. So I got a series of different comparisons. Images from Stable Diffusion 1.5 to images from Stable Diffusion 2.0. I made sure to choose things that would give highlights on some of the problem areas and some of the benefit or the strength areas of both of the things. And there's a bunch of varied examples. The Stable Diffusion 2.0 images are generated at 768 by 768, and the Stable Diffusion 1.5 images are generated at 512 by 512. 512 by 512 is the native resolution for 1.5, and 768 by 768 is the native resolution for Stable Diffusion 2.0. There's some parts of the video where it's different, but I'll tell you. So let's start with the first one. Celebrities, Emma Watson photo. What you see here, this part of the thing is the prompt that was used. The prompt was Emma Watson photo. The top one, Stable Diffusion V1.5, and this is Stable Diffusion V2.0. If you look at the first images, you can see, if you know what Emma Watson looks like, that this looks like Emma Watson, right? However, if you look at Stable Diffusion V2.0, you'll see this does not look like Emma Watson at all. This looks like somebody else. What's going on? Okay, there's a lot of stuff here between Stable Diffusion 1.5 and Stable Diffusion 2.0 that's going to contribute to this. I'm going to go through these as we go through the video. But one of the things that they did in the original Stable Diffusion, when they were training it, they didn't deduplicate the data. So what that means is, if there was a lot of images that were very similar to each other, they would still train on them. In this version, they've removed that. So what that leads to, someone like this, or celebrities, where they would have a lot of images potentially posted again and again and again, the same images, which would strengthen the ability for the algorithm to be able to create images that look like them. They've gotten nerfed, basically. That's gotten nerfed. And on this patch, we're gonna have to work with the new Stable Diffusion. Celebrities specifically, who are likely to have a lot of similar images of them on the internet, are gonna get hurt. So this is one aspect where Stable Diffusion 2.0 is not as good as Stable Diffusion 1.5. It literally went up by a whole 0.5, and yet it got maybe worse, maybe 0.5 times worse. I don't know. It didn't go in the correct direction, right? And this is one thing that you're going to see across the board. Another example I want to show you here, this is two comparisons between Stable Diffusion 1.5. These are the same images that I just showed you. These are the ones from Stable Diffusion 1.5. If you look at this 1.5 and you look at this one, what you'll notice is I changed the CFG. The CFG essentially guides the image or controls how strict the image follows whatever your prompt is. A lower CFG gives the algorithm more freedom to change things. At the normal default 7 CFG, the image actually looks pretty cooked, and you end up with these kind of artifacts where it looks a little too over bright in certain areas. On the CFG reduced version, it's not like that, and it's actually not overcooked anymore. And the reason why it's like that is because, as I said, because there's so many images of her in the data set that did not get removed or anything, or deduplicated or anything, the algorithm gets better at producing images that look like her, but it starts to be worse, so to the point that she actually looks better or more lifelike if you reduce the CFG past the normal level. Whereas other images might look bad at 4 CFG. This, on the other hand, looks good. The point of this is to show it's not just a benefit of having the additional images, there's also a negative. So there's another one that we have here lined up, and you can see the same thing. These images look absolutely nothing like the person. Well, I shouldn't say absolutely nothing. Okay, maybe it looks like her a little bit, but it doesn't look 100%. This one probably is the most that looks like her, but these other two don't really look like her. I will say that the images are of higher quality in terms of the fidelity and so on, right? It doesn't look like the thing that you were asking for, even if it's of higher quality. Same thing again, like look at these images. They don't really look look, this one is probably the one that most looks like her, but you can see there's way more consistency across 1.5 with her, whereas this is very inconsistent. This is the only one that looks like her, and it's because it's at a weird angle. Another one, same thing again, doesn't really look like her. The images look more detailed and stuff, but it doesn't look like her. Especially the eyes, especially, are way better in the 2.0 image. This one, again, doesn't look like her. I'd say this one most looks like the original person. If you look at the eyes, as I said, these ones are worse, markedly so, whereas these ones are way better. So the image overall looks better in the new version. So it looks higher fidelity, but worse in correctness. This one is to show that with Stable Diffusion 1.5, styles sometimes will blend together. And I've noticed in Stable Diffusion 2.0 that it's better at preventing that from happening. It's like, yeah, you look at this and it's very clear that this is Emma Gadot. You see this one that looks mostly like Emma, but this other one looks like Emma and Gal Gadot. Now, if you look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, remember, right? Emma in Stable Diffusion 2.0 isn't Emma, and the Gal Gadot isn't Gal Gadot. That's why I showed you those ones first. Don't remember the real Emma. Remember the fake Emma from Stable Diffusion 2.0. And you can see that this looks like the fake Emma, right? The Gal Gadot one isn't blending with Emma to create like Emma Gadot or anything. You're not seeing that. They keep separate. And this is one of the things Stable Diffusion 2.0 seems to be better at doing. Okay, another thing that I have, interacting with objects. So in Stable Diffusion, if you try to interact with an object like 1.5 or whatever, usually things just get messed up. You can have an object by itself, but if you have an object holding another one, a person holding something, the example I have here was Emma Watson holding a baby. Okay, if you look at 1.5, you'll see the parts where the baby connects to Emma. You have this cascade of weirdness. Her hand's really shaped weird, the baby's shaped weird, there's all kinds of weird stuff. Whereas if you look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, it's much better in terms of the coherency. Like, look at her hand in this one here. The hand in this one is insane. It looks like a real, you can see her veins, everything. And considering how historically bad Stable Diffusion is at hand, you can see it's worse at stuff like celebrities and certain other things I'll get to in the video, but it's better at some things that Stable Diffusion used to be bad at. So it's worse at stuff 1.5 was good at, but it's good at stuff 1.5 was bad at. So it's kind of like a side grade rather than an upgrade. You understand? Yeah, so this one, Stable Diffusion tends to be really bad trying to render a whole body of a person. The further away or the smaller the features in the image, the harder it is for it to make it look like something good. If you want to do like a full body of someone, then that's going to take up your whole image. Face in that is going to be much smaller. The hands are going to be much smaller. Everything's going to be much smaller. You can see the faces here. They're kind of mangled. Whereas if you look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, the faces, especially on this one, they're much more sensible, even though the size of them, and this is something you can test yourself with Stable Diffusion, the bigger the face in the image, the better quality it is. So this puts it really far away, and you can see that regular 1.5 breaks down, or 1.0 breaks down, where 2.0 holds together much better. This is probably the worst one in 2.0. I think this was the best one. Yeah, this was the best one from 1.0. The problem with this is that this face is much bigger than these other ones. So this has the best chance of being successful, and this has the least chance of being successful. So to illustrate that, I have another comparison. Remember, all the 1.5 images are at 512 by 512. All the 2.0 are at 768 by 768. These are the same images again. These are the images here. But I have at 1.5 at the bottom, I generated those at 768 by 768. And what you can see, the images quality or the faces and stuff improved in quality, right? All of them are doing better. You can see that these faces are definitely more comparable, but I still think on average 2.0 is better. So you can see how resolution actually increases the quality as well, right? You understand? So now we're going to do some art comparisons. We're going to compare Stable Diffusion 1.5 doing art and Stable Diffusion 2.0 doing art. I know I talked about the deduplication and stuff in terms of removing similar types of images. That should affect art stuff less. But what would affect it is the removal of not safe for work content. Any artist that makes images that are kind of slightly not safe for work, a lot of their images could be removed from the dataset. The Stable Diffusion CEO, I guess, the GPU emperor himself, what he said was when they were filtering out not safe for work content, they did so aggressively. There's gonna be stuff that isn't not safe for work that got filtered out anyway. So that means if someone makes more provocative content, it's very likely to be removed. I think this is gonna disproportionately affect like art and stuff. So it means that a lot of art stuff is worse in 2.0. This is Alex Ross. So you can see again the prompt here, young woman, upper body by Alex Ross. And if you look at the top one here, you can see the images. These are 1.5. I've heard people say that they've removed artists, they've removed a bunch. They haven't done that. The only confirmed thing that they've removed is not safe for work content. They've also changed the clip model. What that means for you, they've changed the way that artists are identified in the dataset, and then they also trained on a completely different dataset that was filtered to hell. This is a different identification system, a different set of images, and a different filtering process. They didn't filter out artists. They didn't remove any artists. The artists are still there. It's just that you run into certain issues and you kind of see what I mean. I ultimately think that these images are good or whatever. I noticed something where I found that the Stable Diffusion 2.0 images tended to lean more realistic. Maybe that's just a subjective thing that I noticed and it doesn't actually matter, but it just felt like these images look slightly more realistic. So now we have a pretty funny example here. And we're gonna do Greg Rethowski, the man, the myth, the legend himself. And you can look at the first one, Stable Diffusion 1.5. Even this one cut off all the heads. I don't know why. That's just how it is. If you look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, you'll realize, yeah, like, it seems like Greg is no longer king of the hill in Stable Diffusion 2.0. It's clear that Stable Diffusion 2.0 has no idea who Greg Rethowski. It just gave me like 3 random images of people. That's what it did. This is funny, but I feel people think they removed artists because Greg Rethowski is used so much that a bunch of people go and use it. They type Greg in and they're like, what the hell? they removed all the artists. I mean, these images look nice enough or whatever, but it's clearly not Greg Rethowski. So something happened here. It seems like some artists got affected way more by these changes and some got affected way less. Depending on what kind of images you use and what kind of images you create, you would be affected more or less by this. So another artist here, Yoji Shinkawa. So if you look at this, right, he's the illustrator behind drawings like these. So you can see these, Stable Diffusion 1.5 looks like Yoji Shinkawa's style, everything's fine. But if you go and look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, you can see this still looks like his style. In fact, I'd say that it's kind of like subjective if you want to say it's worse or better or whatever. I will say though, it doesn't look like the Metal Gear style. That's probably what he's most famous for, Yoji Shinkawa. But still, I'd say it looks pretty good. It still looks like its style. It looks nice. And this, I wouldn't call this a fail, okay? This actually looks pretty good. Another artist, again, Richard Schmid. This is an artist. He creates a lot of cool images and stuff. You can see the images at the top here look a lot like his style here. We have this almost human looking pastel thing. You combine like the pastels and make it look like a person in between of all of the stuff. It looks really pastel-y, but it still ends up looking like a human at the end or a person. It looks realistic and not realistic at the same time, right? But if you look at this, it captures the pastel part, but it doesn't really look correct. It just looks like a mess of stuff. It doesn't look like it properly captured the style. It has the idea, but not the execution down properly. You understand? Richard Smith, he made more like not safe for work stuff as well. So he probably got disproportionately affected because of that. And that's another thing. All right, we have another artist here, Ross Draws. Stable Diffusion 1.5 looks like the images that Ross Draws typically make. But if you go to Stable Diffusion 2.0, this is probably the first instance, and I was surprised by this when I was doing the tests and stuff. I was surprised. This is like way better than 1.5 actually. They look really good, like especially this one. They even add like little detail like freckles and sparkles in the air and like petals and stuff. They even add like extra stuff. The galaxy here on this one, it's insane. It looks really good. So the point there is that it's not just entirely like, for some artists it actually is better in Stable Diffusion 2.0, even if it's probably few and far between. So some people got disproportionately affected negatively and some people got disproportionately affected positively. It just seems like most of the conventions that were established have to be changed because a lot of the artists just don't work anymore. They're not even in the data set now. It just doesn't work. Another artist, Mandy Jurgens, so she makes images like this. You can look at these ones that match up with her style, and then you look at this, and again, same thing. She's not in. She just isn't there. You just look at it, you get a bunch of pictures of people. Okay, very clearly she's not in the thing. And as I said, it's like some, you win some, you lose some. This is kind of just how it is. And all of these are artists that I've used before that make good images, that are popular and stuff. So it's not just, I'm looking for artists that don't work. These are just artists that, that's just how it is, right? This is like anime stuff with Stable Diffusion. Base Stable Diffusion is really bad at this. It's not particularly good. But if you look at these images here, you'll see, you get your anime image, looks like Makoto Shinkai type stuff. But if you look at these ones, you'll see that they actually look better. So it seemed like 2.0 is better at a base of doing like anime images and stuff. So that was interesting to see that these ones are better than these ones. Again, I don't think it's like insane, quality or whatever, but still it's better. So another thing we want to do, and this is kind of bleeding off of the full body thing that I was showing earlier, where when faces are smaller in the thing, it looks worse. Another example is when you have groups of people, generally they're gonna be further away, and Stable Diffusion tends to struggle with those sorts of things. Having big groups of people, the image just starts to break down. It just doesn't look correct. I can see here with Stable Diffusion 1.5, a lot of these faces are just completely unrecognizable. They just look terrible. Okay, there's no way anyone, it just looks really bad, right? But if you look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, you'll see that it's way better at maintaining like an actual real person face, even at a distance. And this is something that Stable Diffusion 2.0 has up on 1.5. Another example, again with faces, but this time closer to the camera, right? So not like super big, but it's just like bigger group of people here, right? And you can see these ones again. What you'll notice is, I would say like if we're just talking about the average quality of the image or whatever, say like most of these are like basically the same, right? The only thing I would show is, if you look specifically at the eyes, you'll notice that in 1.5, you end up with these little artifacts, these little bit of artifacting, right? And this is something that has existed in SD for a long time. I think they've been trying to fix that since the very beginning. But in Stable Diffusion 2.0, you can see that the eyes are way better consistently, right? You don't end up with those little kind of artifacts, because even in images where it looks good, their eyes just look a little weird. It looks like they're not do something's wrong. It's hard to describe. The eyes have improved a lot in Stable Diffusion 2.0. Now we go even closer. So the point of this is, remember what I said, the bigger the thing is in the image, the better it looks. So what we're gonna do is have a face, which is something that's easy for these sorts of things to do well, and have it zoom in as much as possible. The best case scenario. How does Stable Diffusion 1.5 look in the biggest face, the largest face ever, and how does 2.0 look? And if you look at Stable Diffusion 1.5 here, you can see that the quality of these faces are way better than any of the faces that we've shown in the entire video, right? Way better. They obviously look a lot better. The bigger the face, the better it is in the image. If you look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, with the exception of maybe this, if you look at Stable Diffusion 2.0, you'll see that the quality is so much better, especially, again, the eyes. The reflections that you see off of the eyes are insane. You don't even see any of that. The eyes are there, but they're lacking that extra bit of quality that you see in Stable Diffusion 2.0, where you can really feel the only one is this one. I'd say it's probably the best looking one out of all of these, and probably the most realistic feeling in general. Some of these look almost hyper realistic from Stable Diffusion 2.0. They kind of look weird, kind of uncanny valley type stuff, but this one looks more correct, I would say. I mean, her hair is kind of a little weird, but for the most part, it looks the most normal one. You know what I mean? Then, remember, as I said, the resolution is what ultimately controls the quality of the image. Understand? So what I decided to do was to, again, as I did earlier in the video, we have like this image here at 768 by 768. We have the same image again at 768 by 768 on 1.5. So I'm scaling up the image from 1.5 now to 768 by 768. And what you'll see, again, the quality of this goes up by a lot. I feel like the eyes, especially in 1.5, get way better at this higher resolution. And this is kind of, it might be that the one part of why SD 2.0 is better is the higher base resolution, where even the regular algorithm would just do better at a higher base resolution. Like if somebody trained up 1.5 with higher resolution images, it might perform like how SD performs at this thing. The eyes look way better. But one thing, or two things actually, I want you to notice is, in this image, the hair on the girl looks really weird. It looks like textured. It just doesn't look correct. This is something that happens a lot with SD. When you scale the images up too big, you end up with this kind of weird repeating pattern stuff coming into the image, and it looks a little weird. And if you look at the eyes are way better than the 1.5 eyes at 512 by 512. If you look at the reflections in the eyes there, you'll see that even at the higher resolution, you still don't get that. Like, it looks like it's almost there, but it's not 100%. It's really, really close though. Remember I told you the resolution could be part of the reason why SD 2.0 is doing as well as it is. You can scale up the resolution on SD 1.0. So I did it at 768 by 768, but I also said that there can be issues if you scale it up too big, right? So now I'm going to show you what happened. So with Stable Diffusion 2.0 here, I'm scaling it up to 1024 by 1024. That's from 768 to 1024 by 1024. So Stable Diffusion 2.0 is getting scaled up to by 1024 by 1024. So it's generating at that resolution, right? And then 1.5 is the same thing. And you can see the images here from 2.0. They look pretty nice. I'd say like in this one, you have an elongated neck. Those are the sort of artifacts that pop up in your image when you start scaling past the base resolution. Like artifacts and limbs start getting too long, you start getting double limbs, double heads, all kinds of things start to happen. Now, if we look at 1.5, you'll see the entire image is completely broken down. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. It's all over the place, right? It's like, it's terrible. Nightmare fuel is what it looks like, right? And I wanted to show, basically, it's not like if you scale up Stable Diffusion 2.0, it will still break down too, by the way, right? But because it starts at a higher base resolution, it can go up to larger amounts before it breaks down. That's something that's pretty interesting. Another interesting difference is the resolution availability of Stable Diffusion 2.0, right? You can do a lot more. Anyway, guys, that's the video. It's pretty weird. You would think that 1.5 should just be worse than 2.0, right? That's just how it should be because it's a bigger number. What's going on? There's a whole 0.5 on the table. What's going on? But it's not really worse. I wouldn't say it's so much that 1.5 got replaced by 2.0. It's more like it's a side grade. I think you use 1.5 and you use 2.0. It's not like you stop using 1.5 and you move on to 2.0. It's you use them both at the same time because there's a lot of stuff that 1.5 can do that 2.0 can't do, and there's a lot of stuff that 2.0 can do that 1.5 can't do. So ultimately, I hope this video shed more light on why 2.0 is not really an upgrade. It's more kind of a side grade in some cases, a downgrade in some, or whatever. It's not 100% clear. And yeah, if you like the video, and check out my other videos, and yeah.